the Long Live Podcast. I'm James Irene Waters, your host, and tonight we are joined by a very good friend of mine, Irene. If I can.
Yeah, Irene.
Irene, yeah, right. So, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience, say what you do, and
Oh, really?
stuff like that? Well,
I didn't
okay,
prepare that. Okay. Um,
okay.
well, I'm Irene. I'm 22. I'm from Barcelona, and I'm finishing my studies in political science and gender studies. And I don't know. I like to do a lot of things. I don't know. I'm struggling a bit with this quarantine, but I'm fine today, so yeah, I'm happy to do this podcast with you, my
For
dear
sure, for sure.
friend.
We used to live together in Finland a couple of years ago, and that's
Yeah.
how we met, and we've stayed in contact, which is wonderful. And I want to mention that you also have your own podcast as well, and I can link it in the description.
Okay.
A lot of it is in English though, right? So
No, not
is
a
that
lot. It's just like few minutes, like 3 minutes. I'm doing like I don't know, like imitation. You say imitation, like
of
imitation of a situation that I had in Finland actually. So we talk about feminism and we laugh, and that's all.
awesome?
And yeah, it's in Spanish, but sometimes I do something in English, but it's not the whole point.
Yeah, well, I'll link it anyway if anyone in the audience is a Spanish speaker, or if you have an English one, you might, you can show that to be the case. So
Yeah,
today we are reviewing and discussing and having a little bit of fun with Slavoj Zizek's new book, Pandemic: COVID-19 Shakes the World. So Slavoj Zizek is a very counterintuitive, controversial, Marxist, Lacanian, Hegelian philosopher who discusses ideology and global capitalism and desire and a bunch of other things, which are all very interesting. And he's pretty popular because he has a very counterintuitive approach to how he does philosophy. He'll always say things like, I don't know, for example, yeah, right. The ultimate melancholic experience is the loss of desire, as opposed to getting the thing that you want. You want to desire, as opposed to just. He says things like this, which are very interesting, and they sort of perk your ears up a little bit. And this new book's very interesting. So basically, what he does is he discusses the coronavirus situation, what situation we're in geopolitical affairs, like European affairs, and then advocating a new global communism, which he sort of talks about as global cooperation. And he has a very succinct point, which is we are faced with two choices, either communism or barbarism, where we let the old and weak die. And I first want to say, before we go into it, how incredible the effort is that he wrote this in a few weeks. Like, what do you think? We were talking about this on the phone about.
yeah, we talked about this. Yeah, I think it's amazing, and yeah, I feel like he's amazing, but and and he wrote about a lot of books before, but this one is like so fast, and all the information it's very no, how do you say?
How do It's very vivid, maybe. Is vivid the right word that you're trying to say? Or?
No,
Okay.
like from this moment. I mean, you don't feel like it's from
very, very, very current.
current. Yeah, current.
Current would be the word. Yeah. So what me and Irene thought we were going to do was go through each chapter, and we sort of give a summary on what he says and what we thought of it. So, yeah. I hope that's okay with my audience. And if this wasn't the podcast you were looking for, then I have others. So this is going to be very philosophical, based on a book that we've spoken about.
No, but we're gonna have fun, right? I mean,
we have fun here. We don't send our viewers to sleep unless they want to sleep, because a lot of people do fall asleep to podcasts. So.
Oh yeah, but we are not like sad intellectuals talking about.
No. I do follow a lot of sad intellectual podcasts, but like they do become kind of like bloody hell, you know. But it's good. It's good information. I take information much easier through the ears than through text. I think because you can hear tones and all
Yeah.
of that. And yeah, I find I'm much more of a listener than a reader, which is I think a lot of people are these days with the rise of audiobooks and stuff like that.
But you also rate, right?
Yeah,
So
of course, yeah. And I'll hopefully be doing an audiobook for my book after
oh,
it gets released, which should be fun. That should be
that's nice.
I think I might do it. Yeah, I think I might do it myself. Just do it at home, and like I've got a pretty good quality on this microphone, and I could
Yeah.
get someone who does recording in to like help me out and stuff. So
And your voice is amazing.
thank you. And yeah, well, thanks
Yeah,
very
it is.
Thank you very much. I'll take that. So should we get into the book, or do you wanna?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first introduction, he quotes Mary Magdalene in the Bible saying,
Yeah.
"Touch me not," when she sees Jesus Christ on the crucifix, and I thought this was a very interesting introduction for Zizek to add a Christian parable. Which, and
He is Christian, right? I think.
Zizek, is he Christian? He's an atheist. He is an atheist.
Are you sure? Yeah.
Yeah, he said, how can I, an avowed atheist, understand these words
Oh
of Mary
yeah,
Magdalene?
that's right. Yeah. I don't know why I thought that he was Christian. Yeah.
Well, he did debate Jordan Peterson, and Jordan Peterson's Christian, so maybe
Mm.
that was a weird debate. Anyway, yeah. So he says, "Will we learn from this epidemic?" And he quotes Hegel and saying, "We learn from history that we do not learn from history." So he doesn't think, which I hate to agree with, because I do find that history does repeat itself, and it's very it is unlikely that we're going to have any long-lasting change from coronavirus. And I mean soon the nurses of the NHS that are being applauded, we know we're clapping every week for the NHS staff, but we're not funding them properly, and there's a war veteran who's taking cycles around his house to raise money for the NHS, and everyone's like, "Oh, you should get a knighthood." And I commented on my aunt's. She shared this thing that said he should get a knighthood, and I was like, "Yeah, this is all great, but can we fund the healthcare system properly?" And I got
that would be amazing.
that would be amazing, wouldn't it? And then I got a message from my gran with this like kind of angry face, and I was like, "Oh my god, I hope she's not listening," which was very funny. I'm not sure if those two were related, but I imagine they are. But anyway, I do. Yeah. It is. What I was going to say was that it's very. I think it's very likely that in about a year or so, when coronavirus is over and the nurses demand a higher pay, they're going to be seen as greedy and unionists and all of this, and it's nothing's going to fucking change.
Sure.
And we're applauding them because it makes us feel good. Zizek would be very, very on that. He'd say we applaud
our
because it makes us
is like calm. Yeah.
Exactly. Zizek even says like we buy organic apples because it makes us feel good. It doesn't do fucking shit for the environment, as opposed to making actual social change. But and how we make that social change without it being tyrannical is something we could get into when we talk about Zizek's advocations for global communism. Which is of course the issue in Zizek's view.
Yeah, I think he presents this dilemma like and then with this when he's asking, will we learn anything from it? And then throughout the book he kind of recovers it a lot of times, and I mean, he starts saying that this question, as a good Hegelian, he quotes Hegel and says that the only thing we humans can learn from history is that we learn nothing from history, as you said. And So yeah, he agrees that this epidemic will not make us any wiser.
Yeah.
But then I think throughout the book, he defends the potential of this, for change of this moment. I mean,
He's
I see you.
I think it's coming back. There we go. That's all right. It was just frozen for a bit. We can cut that. We can cut the weird bit out. So
Yeah. Okay.
yes, sorry about the technical difficulties. It's just we have a poor connection at the moment, so it's probably on my end. So yeah. So you were saying that he sort of maybe not contradicts himself, but he does say
No.
that we can learn.
We can learn.
That there is potential to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But I would.
Yeah, and this potential basically is through this new form of communism. That I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot in this podcast.
Absolutely. I do hope the connection gets better because it's quite irritating. But it's all right. If it doesn't work, we can just hang up and start again. I can save what we've spoken about so far. Okay. So, chapter 1. We are all in the same boat now. I think Slavoj makes a claim that the distrust of the Chinese government and their people correspondingly leads to the worst case. I wrote that I wouldn't make that the complete claim, but it is a very interesting observation to make that the distrust is a huge part in what actually happened. It's I would say that like there are multiple cases of distrust throughout the world as opposed to China, but I suppose that the Chinese distrust and how they treat things is far more severe, I suppose, because considering how they don't they're they don't have a democracy, they don't have elections, and there's a definite divide between what the Chinese government believe and what the people believe. And Zizek says a very interesting thing where he says the most dangerous thing to do today in China is to believe seriously in the state's own official ideology, which I said, very interesting. Another counterintuitive point from Zizek, because he's even talking about the government. The worst thing the government can do is believe their own ideology. And this is just very classic Zizek, in my opinion. Very like, just like, it's just very, very like, what if the opposite is true? All of that, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And very, I wouldn't expect anything else from him, really. So, I mean, have you got any notes on chapter 1 that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, some things that you already said, but
yeah, please.
Yeah, this thing he talks about fake news and the difficulties of separate what he says, good freedom of speech and bad rumors, which I think is interesting. And so he ends up saying that this whole problem can be solved without mutual trust between people, but also with a structure and administration of a government and a state. So it's basically what is missing in China, he says. So
yeah, right. Oh, you look better now. The connection looks way better now, which is which looks good. Yeah, No, go on.
Yeah. I also have some notes about he now starts talking about communism and quoting the word communism and communist measures.
Yeah.
And he defends these communist measures in a global level right now. And he also says that the market mechanism, of course, will be not enough to prevent chaos. So it's like a perfect moment for a coordination of production and distribution outside the market. So yay, communism.
Yes, of course.
Like the perfect moment for this new communism.
Right,
one of the potentials that I think he talks about.
Oh, absolutely awesome. That smells really good, by the way. I don't know what you've done with it, but it smells fantastic. Nothing special, just nothing special.
Are you still vegan?
I am still vegan. Yeah, we're both still pretty vegan. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. I love you.
Jack's way more like
more vegan.
Well, no, well, yeah, but like we're both vegan, but like Jack is way more on it. You know, he reads a lot of stuff about veganism and also antinatalism, which I think would be interesting for you as well. Yeah. A lot of like, you know, is it ethical to have kids and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And you've spoken about it. I think you and Jack would get on really well, actually. Maybe we should like give Jack a seat or something, and then he can. Come on. Say hi to Irene. We can on the podcast.
Yeah, I want to meet him. Hey. Nice to meet you.
Now that I've finished cooking as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I was saying I can talk about C-check now as well because I finished cooking.
Oh, that's cool. You can talk with us if you want.
Yeah. I mean, come and sit.
Whereabouts were we?
We were talking about how Zizek was saying. Yeah, the first chapter. We were talking about how Zizek says that that official news is already full of rumors as opposed to the fake news that we're worried about.
Yeah.
And I was gonna make a note there, but I forgot to write a note.
I mean, fake news. You've got like the Sun, haven't you? Obviously.
Yeah.
You've got various UK news sources that like are known to be biased towards like Tory campaigning. It's fucked up.
It's fucked up. Yeah, no worries. That's my flatmate Jack.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So yeah, shall we move on to chapter 2? We got 8 other chapters to.
Let's see. I think I have another note.
Oh, go on.
Oh yeah, it's just. I mean, it's not an important thing, but we wanted to talk about funny moments of Zizek as well. So I think there's not a lot of funny moments in this and quotes in this book, which I understand because it's not an easy situation to talk about. But I like the quote when he says, we are now threatened by the harmless things that God, in his wisdom, has put upon this earth. Stupid viruses which just blindly reproduce themselves and mutate. I think it's.
I was going to say that I found a lot of parts of this book very funny.
Yeah.
And
really.
like considering it's a topic about coronavirus, but that's just his unapologetic charm, I think, of of such a thing, which was and I found his humor very tasteful, to say the least. It wasn't insensitive. So
yeah.
So there's that. So okay. Chapter 2. Why do we feel tired all the time?
I love this title.
Yeah, I know.
I have to say, I really love this title, and I think it's funny. This is funny for me.
Yeah. So he basically says tiredness comes in. Like I'm sort of skipping ahead a little bit here, but he basically says there are 3 forms of major tiredness in the world. The first is the self-exploiters, those that the sort of entrepreneurial kind of people, or like the sort of the people working for Google and marketing for Google that now at home are really pushing themselves for no real virtuous reason, as far as I read it. Third world exploiters, which is bloody hell, like by far the biggest one for me. Can I get that water?
Yeah.
Thanks. My mouth is I'm a bit parched. Thank you. Oh. Wait. Basically, Zizek was saying that. Okay, come and join. This wasn't planned.
Should I go on this side though?
Yeah, that's good. This is Jack, everyone. Once again. So, I was just reading, Jack. I was just saying, tiredness comes in 3 forms. You have self-exploiters, those who shamelessly work for big corporations.
Oh yeah.
And you have the third world exploiters, and this is the big point that Zizek always hits home about, that global capitalism is a real thing. It's not just like things are getting better in the Western world. It's that there are still major problems in third world countries where, you know, e-waste is just one of the many examples I can give, you know, sweatshops, all of that sort of thing. And the third is healthcare workers and how tired they must be from dealing with all of this, and the amount of people that have signed on to volunteer. And I have a friend who's a care worker, and she's actually losing clients because so many of them are dying from coronavirus, but she's still like, but she's as an end of life carer, she's just working so laboriously anyway, just 16-hour shifts and whatnot. And of course, for the people that are still alive, there's, you know, she's still working that hard, you know. So I'm just word salading at you. So please tell me what you thought of this chapter.
I think the most important thing of this chapter, at least for me, is this is this discussion about Shulhan thought about master and slave. And I actually strongly agree with Zizek in this discussion, because we cannot compare the situation of a top manager, as you were saying, or someone that is working in Google, and a precarious worker. So we are not. Because Chulhan says that we are this. Individuals, we are master and slave right now because of capitalism and all this stuff. He says, more or less. I understand your point, but
does he talk about how business owners can work outside of the office, whereas the front line would still be?
Well, exactly. He did. He does say that. He does. He says about like how, you know, even the tiredness of self-exploiters is still like, it's not nearly as tiring as the NHS staff, as the precarious workers in the third world. And he concludes this chapter by saying, but the healthcare tiredness is not bullshit, it's worthwhile. That work where they're actually taking care of people is worthwhile, as opposed to, you know, marketing the new Apple product from in home, making someone else money, all of that sort of stuff, which I can't help but agree with. I can't help but agree with this. Again, it's a pessimistic. I find the self-exploitation a little pessimistic.
I think it's. I agree with that self-exploitation idea, but that we are always trying to reinvent ourselves and refashion ourselves and all this stuff, and it's so tired. But it's not the same as being exploited and with a precarious work in the third world.
Yes, exactly.
We have to talk about classes here, but he defends a lot. And can I say something more about this?
Please, no. Of course, I don't want to talk everyone's ear off.
Okay, because I want to. What you were saying about this, the importance of human care, and workers and care workers right now, that we're supposedly giving, and I think it's very much related with the shit that I like, which is feminism, and because caretakers and care workers are a lot of time. The majority of them are women, so there's a gender perspective that we could talk about here, and I think he doesn't talk about gender with this gender perspective a lot. And that's maybe a criticism that I can. So there's a gender gap here, and since mostly women are in charge of this care work, and not only precarious but also invisible. So for the markets, and even though it's important to sustain us as a society, as a world. So yeah, I like that he says something like we expect in these care workers to work with empathy, affection.
Yeah, I missed this part. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and so yeah, I think this is very related with this gender.
He says
gap
he
that
says
I'm talking about.
he basically says, I'm paraphrasing here, but he says like it must feel tired to be nice all the time. It must be tiring to be nice
Yeah.
all the time, which again is quite a funny bit. So yeah, I really enjoyed that whole thing. Like, you know, and he
Yeah.
finishes the chapter by saying their tiredness is worthwhile, which was a nice ending. I mean, again, I find it pessimistic, and I also, you know, when talking about self-exploiters, of course, the third world problem is completely unavoidable. But with the self-exploiters, I do find like there is an element of self-actualization going on when people are able to, I don't know, work for themselves as opposed to having a master. That we may not need the Marxist theory may not need to be as prevalent. I'm not of course not saying that it's like that it's completely out of the picture, but like it's you know, I do wonder like at what point self-exploitation becomes authentic and something that's virtuous or valuable, I suppose. And when, you know, at what point can we actually be allowed to sort of work for ourselves? Or
I think about culture actually, and I'm thinking about it a lot of like grafting, as some people like to call it, working hard and like making you know, getting up some savings or whatever it is. It's not very, in our culture, that's not very applauded, I guess.
Yeah.
Like working hard, as it were. I think maybe one part of it is because there's a lot of the perspective that you're working for someone else, you're working for your boss, and you're not. Yeah. There's a lot of like minimum wage jobs don't have any prospects to like go through promotions, whereas they should really, because a lot of like a company, like for example, like a big company chain restaurant, McDonald's, is in itself a huge company with a shitload of profit. But there's so many people at the bottom who, in a traditional sense, when you like join a company, you're the idea of it is that you work your way up the ladder. But with a lot of corporations, kind of about these days, or well, not these days, but just in general, with just like large corporations that don't I guess realize that it's the bottom section that is making all of the important actions, such as
the proles, yeah.
All the pawns are making all the actual things that are like in war, man. Yeah. Pawns are the ones who actually would go out, do the front line, get fucking killed on behalf of
rich
people,
rich white men. That's a tongue
twister. Rich white men.
Rich white men.
Should come up with the word.
For sure.
Yeah.
The rights.
Okay.
So I think it's important to dignify. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this will be better after this crisis, but I don't know. I feel like we should, after this, make this kind of works more visible because they are sustaining us. And I mean, this situation, it's so clear now that we cannot live without health workers, with carekeepers, with all the people that works in supermarkets and the cleaners and all these people that works a lot. So basically we have to dignify this kind of works and understand that
I'm not even sure dignify is the word. I mean like more than dignify, like
to make it relevant.
Make it like
praise.
Of course, praise.
It is not dignified right now. So
I see. Okay, yeah.
At least that. I mean, right now there's a lot of works related with care that are not considered work, or they're not paid, which is like something that feminists have been saying for a lot of years. And I mean, I think right now it's a potential. It has potential. It is potentially. I don't know how to say that, but there's potential here to change that. And I think I don't know. I think we can. I mean, it's important to talk about this and understand this. Care work is work. So
for sure. Yeah, even unpaid care work is work, you know.
Exactly, and it shouldn't be unpaid.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I feel like we should move on because we're half an hour in and we're only on chapter 2, which is fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. we can just be like, I knew this would happen. We can just like if parts are boring, we can just skip over them and we can just really go into like the parts that we find interesting because what's the point if we're not enjoying it? So and we can let it go on for as long as we like anyway. So chapter 3, towards a perfect storm in Europe. So he discusses 3 situations. I forget the countries. It's like Turkey, Syria, and Germany or something. And he talks about this perfect storm, which is 3 natural disasters, 3 natural problems like storm and hurricane, which took place to eventually result in this huge hurricane. And he says that the similar thing is happening here, and I love the analogy. Very interesting geopolitical observation and fun comparison is what I said. I think it's a very vivid, very very arty. What's the word? Poetic. Poetic is the word. So yeah.
I love this word of putogan.
Putogan. For sure.
Oh man, yeah, the Putin and Erdogan. Erdogan.
Putin and the other
Erdogan
guy.
and Putin. Putogan. We say in Spain we say shipeo. When we put together 2 names, like there's a couple that are in love, so you put like in one word, in one name, they're both names.
What
and
do we call it?
Portmanteau.
A portmanteau.
Yeah.
Jack loves the word portmanteau.
Yeah, cyborg is a portmanteau of like cyber and organism, which is like fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar sort of thing. Yeah. I think it's the same sort of thing. I love it when Zizek says one should avoid the game of asking who is more responsible.
Yeah.
Erdogan or Putin for the crisis. They are both worse.
yeah. I love that. Yeah.
I love that.
I don't know why we feel all the time the obligation of I don't know, put one as the good one and the worst one.
It's dangerous. It's like the American 2-party system, Yeah. Who's worse, Joe Biden or Donald Trump? And it's like they're both worse.
If they're both worse, you need to that should tell you to look for the alternative.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Or Trump or Putin, and it's like.
Are you team Trump or team? You have to be. You have to love one. You have to support one.
It is not the Cold War. Okay.
So the opponent of the alt-right saying immigrants should. So they said there's an alt-right speaker speaking about how we shouldn't give money to the refugees, and the leftist opponent said, but if we don't give them money, they're going to try and come here anyway, which is against what you want.
Exactly. Yeah. I think.
Which is just a nice way of sort of getting rid of ideology and what you believe, and just saying, if you really want this, you actually should. Exactly the pragmatic result. We should actually. Yeah, exactly. And then he says, final the coordination between based on the unity of France and Germany, Europe should then act to deal with the refugee crisis, which I feel is building up to his communist claim that it's communism or barbarism.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting. I find it progressive. I do have 2 major problems with the whole thing. With this communist or barbarist argument, but we're not quite there yet. So, and so we'll get into it basically.
Okay.
So, chapter 4. Welcome to the viral desert. And here he says, but there is a paradox here. Coronavirus will also compel us to reinvent communism based on trust in the people and in science. aha, this is where the argument comes in.
Yeah.
The communist argument. Yeah. So this is the interesting thing. So yeah, I'm talking everyone's ear off again. So please give me your thoughts on
let's see what I have my notes. Okay, so yeah, I have a note about this sentence that he says, sad fact that we need a catastrophe. How do you say catastrophe?
So it's a catastrophe. So you
catastrophe. To be able to rethink the very basic features of the society in which we live. So I think it's something that I cannot stop thinking these days. Like, what else could probably happen to make us stop radically and this period and of time and the whole world? It's just I can't think of another situation that make it.
I mean, I don't think a more affecting situation has happened since World War II.
I was thinking like wars and terrorism is kind of usually
not even. I mean, even 9/11 was just a thing that happened in New York. Obviously, I'm not invalid. You know, I'm not saying it is fine. But but I don't think anything has ever affected the world this much since World War II. I can't think of anything. Maybe the Cold War, but again, people were still living out their lives. You know, so
yeah.
So, geez, who knows?
Yeah, it's a new situation, so I don't know. And I mean, we were we were living in a way that, I mean, this situation was not sustainable, and we knew that, but we were doing nothing. And it was something that ecologists, for instance, have been saying for years now, and
70s.
that the inertia of capitalism is not sustainable. So nothing was able to stop it, and suddenly this. I don't know.
Okay. So then he does the Kill Bill analogy. Is coronavirus not a 5-point heart exploding technique? 5-point palm exploding heart technique on all of us. Which was very funny. Probably the funniest. Probably the funniest point in the book. If anyone's seen Kill Bill, you know what he means. Very goofy. Does he need to stick to the pop culture references to remain relevant to the entry-level readers or something? I don't know, but it is funny.
It is.
It's a bit goofy.
He was probably like binge watching a lot of Tarantino films during fucking Corona.
This probably does, yeah. That's why I also said it was kind of misplaced, but like you gotta. I hate to love it, basically. I hate to love this comparison.
Why?
I don't know, just like because.
It's a serious book.
Because it's not that it's a serious book. It's that. I mean, the main thing I can draw from it is that it's a thing that delays. It's a thing that
affects. Death has been assured, but it's
but it's delayed. But
as soon as you start,
I do like.
Was it trying to get on when you start to try and get on with your life again? That's when you're taking those steps.
Well, that makes it. No,
I'm pretty sure that's what you told me.
Yeah. Well, when you say it like that, it is more.
It was business as usual. If you go back to the business as usual, you are going to be taking set. So in Kill Bill, for listeners who have not seen this, so the 5-point, the technique was some crazy fucking like pressure point shit. You press like 5 points, and then they can chill, they can sit down, they can do whatever. But when they take like 5 steps, their heart explodes. So business as usual, going back to what you were doing beforehand, exploitive capitalism, as it were. Let's say. As soon as you start going back to that, you're jumping back into problematic actions and what.
Nice. I like it way more now that you've reminded. Yeah. Okay. I like it more. I thought the comparison was just a little goofy, and I don't know. I'm not too strong on that opinion. So yeah. He then says, Another weird phenomenon that we can observe is the triumphant return of capitalist animism, of treating social phenomena such as markets or financial capital as living entities.
Well,
and I think that treating the market as a living entity is ridiculous. It doesn't make it. It doesn't make any
sympathy for it.
Yeah. The stock market's crap. I mean, like, you know.
Oh no, my stock market that I raised. But it can be revived.
Well, obviously, obviously, it's going to cause issues. But like, when the face of actual tens of thousands of deaths, then bloody hell, we need to get our priorities a bit more sorted. I think so.
Yeah. It's a bit like, is it a criticism against people who think in that way?
Yes, okay, for sure, of course it is. Yeah. He's a avowed communist. So yeah. So okay, should we move on to chapter 5?
I like this part.
Go on.
I like this part. I know. Yeah, if one reads our big media, the impression one gets is that what we should really worry about are not the 1,000 who have already died and the many more who will, but the fact that markets are panicking.
Yeah. Yes,
oh.
We're gonna piss off a few libertarians.
We've got to get like
by talking about this.
That says like,
I don't care.
Oh man, I might put this. Because I will listen to what libertarians have to say, and they actually. I noticed that they agree with exactly half of the problems of the political scale, because they're still for liberalization of social behavior. So so they believe like. I find it really strange that a lot of libertarians are against gay marriage. I think that's such a strange, or transsexuals. It's such a strange thing, considering they believe in social freedoms. They believe in economic freedom and social freedom. But the libertarians are about social freedom, and I find that if you do believe in social freedom, why are you transphobic? Because I'm in these groups, and a lot of people do sort of talk about this sort of thing as a mental disorder, and I'm like, dude, why do you care? Like, why the fuck do you care?
It's not like it's the same mental disorder as psychopathy and murdering people or like pedophilia. Or
it's simply being at war. I mean, I'm simplifying it, but being at war with yourself, and it's such and wanting to express yourself in a different way. And you'd weirdly think that the libertarians would be all up for that, but they're still a lot of them are still conservative at their core, and still authoritarian on social problems at their core. And I'm not saying all of them are. I'm just saying that a lot of them they sort of tend to egg each other on to sort of retain traditionalist views while claiming to be this radically different system that
modern and
modern. And, no one's ever tried this before, even though still, and a lot of them still support Trump and say that he didn't say to inject bleach, he said to inject disinfectant, and all of this absolute nonsense.
It's funny because here in Spain, I don't think it's the same situation. I think that transphobic people, you can find it more in the conservative circles and parties that the libertarian.
I definitely agree, but I do find it interesting that there's so many libertarians that still are transphobic.
I think at least here, I don't know in your country, but here they are kind of trying to be friendly with LGBT and feminism, and so they talk about liberal feminism and all this stuff, which I don't agree at all. But they are trying so hard to kind of be part of that, but I don't believe them. It's just a mask. But
friendly face.
Yeah, like
barbarism
a friendly face,
with a human
but
face.
I don't trust that. I don't trust that at all.
Okay, so chapter 5, because we're on 45 minutes. Okay, the 5 stages of epidemics. This was the most convincing chapter for me, I think. So he talks about Kübler-Ross on the 5 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And he goes through the stages of someone maybe accepting that they've got a terminal illness, and then he brings it out to the social and what could, and he discusses what denial is, what anger is, what bargaining is, what depression is, and then he opens the question, what would acceptance be for coronavirus? And this is such a compelling argument on the fact that we need to do something. So so tell me your thoughts. I'll tell you my problem with it, my one little problem that if I had to pick one, and you tell me your thoughts on this chapter to begin with. If you have anything, of course. Otherwise, I can just go into the problem that I have.
Yeah, I think you said a lot of things that I mean, I agree with you, and I just have a note. Like, I love how he relates the ecological catastrophe with this situation. So I think he talks about a lot in this book about ecological catastrophes and the crisis, ecological crisis, and I don't know. I didn't have this idea of Zizek talking about. I mean, this image of Zizek talking about ecological crisis. So I don't know. It was nice to
pleasantly surprising for sure.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise.
So my one problem with it is that right. So and this is where my 2 points, my 2 issues with his book are. So he says the problem with the 5 stages of acceptance and the 5 stages of epidemics, it's not an individual coping, it's a social movement, which means that if we are to prescribe some sort of global communism, how can we do it in a way that doesn't result in barbarism or in not barbarism, but how do we do it in a way that's not, but potentially very, very detrimental to democracy and all these other things. But the
one you'd have to vote it into place.
You have to vote, exactly. I mean, of course, democracy is going to prevent such a thing from taking place, but democracy is a virtue as much as the continuation of life. So it's very difficult to balance these 2 virtues of, yes, we need to do something about it, but at what cost do we have to implement this communism? And this is my sort of perspective. But the other problem that I have with it is, how can we actually do this? If we are to solve these problems, how can we do this? What is the pragmatic approach to solving the issue at hand? Which and this is my biggest problem with the book. It's a lack of prescription. There's no. This is how we implement these laws. This is how we organize protests. This is how we enact civil disobedience to certain laws, such as refusing to pay landlord rent and spending on healthcare system. That could be an idea, So don't send the money to your landlord, send it to the NHS and initiate solidarity and say, we're not going to pay for you landlords that do fuck all. We're going to pay it towards the NHS out of solidarity and a moment of crisis. And that's an idea that I wished an idea like that I wished Zizek would actually explore in the book, but he doesn't do. He simply says it's communism or barbarism, as simple as that, and doesn't elaborate actually on what.
We talked about that.
We talked about that about a couple weeks ago.
And and I told you, I think he can do another book talking about this.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he needs to develop more this idea of this new communism. But I don't think he wanted to develop it, at least in this book, because he had short time to do it.
He wanted to keep it current, of course.
Yeah, he wanted to keep it current, and I think he doesn't want to have this role of being so pragmatic. He's more. I mean, he's in the world of ideas, so it's not like. He's not gonna tell you how you have to organize yourself to do that. It just, you should do that and you have to do that because this is wrong, and
it does just I know for sure. I mean, it does just induce stress, because I'm just like, okay, we've got this big problem, we need to do this, and no one's telling me what I can do as an individual to help, because I think it always comes from immediately, you're an individual, how can you do it? As the Stoics would say, anything outside of the sphere of choice doesn't matter, such as like, like asteroids coming to get the Earth, corona, the amount of people that have died already from coronavirus. This doesn't matter in a certain sense because we can't do anything about it. But if we're talking about implementing a global communism, it's unclear as to whether we can do something or we can't do something. And this is the problem, because I want to feel like I can do something about it, but I don't know what I can do. I don't know. I don't know how to organize myself. I don't, and I'm not saying Zizek should have this role, but I do think that it's definitely. I think it's definitely it's an important thing to think about.
Yeah, of course. I think I agree with you. But yeah, I don't think he wants to have this role because I think it happens a lot with philosophy and the authors that they just say things because they can. And that's all. And then there's some other people, like people that study political science or sociologists or anthropologists maybe. Well,
maybe it's our role to tell people how
it's
to
our
implement
role
this global communism.
To do it like translate it in something like material, like we have to do that, so this means that we have to do that, but it's not a Zizek's role, I think. So I understand your point.
So he at least got the conversation started.
He got the conversation started, I think. Yeah. Oh, bloody hell. I'm just thinking back to this. I can even link this BuzzFeed. Actually, I won't link the BuzzFeed article because then I'll give him clicks. And oh my God, what a fucking awful. He just goes into this PC bullshit about.
Should we read it?
Oh, okay. Let's
read a little bit.
Let's read a little bit. BuzzFeed, Zizek, pandemic. Okay, BuzzFeed. Yeah. Basically, this article is a bunch of politically correct rubbish on how he's offensive and doesn't really read any of the main points of the book. And the title of the article is the first book about the coronavirus is here, and it's terrible. And it's by a guy called I won't say the name because if this gets big, he's going to get badgered by loads of.
Come on, you can say the name.
Sorry, yeah.
I don't know. You can say the name.
If you pay £5,
you can. They can look it up.
If you pay £5 towards a Patreon, you'll be able to get a link to his Facebook and his email address. And
that's a joke.
Mobile phone number.
For YouTube, that is a joke. We are not doing that. We're not doing that.
You kind of have to say things that are.
I do, yeah. I mean, we're talking about coronavirus in another podcast, and Oliver was saying that he was going to cook Boris Johnson. And I was saying,
everyone knows is a joke.
Everyone knows the joke.
But historically, Tories like to smear people with old.
Because our friend Oliver is he's a politician. He is, so to speak. He's like vice chair of the Liberal Democrat Party. Oh bloody hell. Okay, I'm trying to find some. But these thoughts jostle with undigested chunks of film dialogue. Complaints about political correctness. Footnotes that mostly point to articles in The Guardian or the Wikipedia, and suggestions that WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, whom Swedish authorities were investigating on the basis of rape and sexual assault allegations last year, is Christ on the cross. And it's just some tiniest nitpicking. It's so irritating. And where's that worst part?
I'm gonna search our conversation in Facebook, James.
Sorry?
I'm gonna search our conversation in
Oh
Facebook.
yeah, go for it. I'll continue talking to the audience.
Yeah.
In many places, he's asking the right questions, and then he says, "Where's the part where he says, oh, but it's already too late."
Yeah.
It's already too late.
Yeah.
But it's too late to apologize.
Sorry, I missed that.
Because it's.
Well, I think I found it. Yeah. Yeah, and they misunderstand his imagery of Wuhan. Zizek writes on the version of Wuhan that he sees in his mind, a city in which he is able to roam without the pressure to constantly work, consume, and engage. This passion, that's just like, And it's just like, no, he wasn't. He wasn't saying that Wuhan was in a great situation because consumerism was dead. He was not saying that, and he even says that is not the case. And the article even says that. I found it. Yeah, he says, you know, he even, you know, there are no anti-consumerist thoughts on his and her mind, just panic, anger, and fear. And then they say, but it's too late. Zizek has declared a wildly lopsided ledger to be balanced on one. Yeah, like.
News is fucking bullshit. Look at this. Look at
And it's fucking BuzzFeed as well.
You see this article on the side? No, Mike Pence did not deliver empty boxes to a nursing home for publicity stunt.
It's just clickbait.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what's the empty boxes? Who cares? What are you just saying? Something that news is literally the opposite of news. It's saying that something didn't happen, as opposed to did happen. It's saying something didn't happen.
It's
so
news is stupid, mate.
What's going on with the news, man?
Yeah, man. You got one fucking source saying this thing, you got the other saying the other thing. I remember during the Brexit campaigns, you like about every day you would see a different meme which would be like, actually, this thing that you saw the other day was not true, and it's like, well, fucking hell. I believe.
What do you believe? Fake news. As he said, yeah.
I like how you said it's not even like news in itself. It's anti-news.
It's anti-news.
It's saying something didn't happen.
I love empty news. I love this concept.
Anti-news.
Today,
no, Zizek did not blow up The Hague today in a bid to restore communism.
Slavoj did not start the gulag in his own back door.
In his backyard.
I didn't hear the...
No, Zizek did not start gulag in his own backyard.
Yeah, for sure. You're
No,
very
he
happy.
didn't. Oh man. All right,
we talk a lot, and I can't find.
You can't find it. Yeah, right. No worries. I mean.
Well, but just yeah, it's okay.
What was the next topic?
All right. Should we break up the fun and talk about chapter 6, the virus of ideology? I only have one note in this, and it's back to when a masked citizen of Wuhan walks around searching for medicine or food, there are definitely no anti-consumerist thoughts on his or her mind. And this, I thought the part was just a tiny bit like clumsy, but the article on BuzzFeed, as I just read, made it out to be a result of awful swindling, and it was just not very, very great. It was not a great interpretation of what Zizek had to say. Zizek was making a good clarification in that he's not saying that Wuhan is a great situation because the consumerism is dead, and it's good for him to say that because he's definitely he's very critical of consumerism. Yeah. So
I guess that's smart of him because obviously critics are going to say, but you didn't like consumerism. Isn't this a good thing?
Right.
It's like, it's Zizek, come on. What do you expect?
So do you have anything to say on chapter 6 before I just swiftly move on to chapter 7?
Yeah, I think I have some notes. Let's see if it's important. When he says one thing is sure, isolation alone, building new walls and further quarantines will not do the job. Full, unconditionally solidarity and globally coordinated response are needed. A new form of what was once called communism. So this reminds me that the other day, a professor of pharmacology here in Catalonia said something similar, but related with pharmacology and medicines and all this stuff related with coronavirus. And he says it's a moment to unify and collectivize knowledge. So this is another potential which we can talk about.
Such as knowledge of pharmaceutical compounds and stuff like this, maybe. Is that?
Yeah, so because he was saying it doesn't make sense anymore to find a vaccine or a pill in China or in another...
America, especially.
Yeah, in America or...
Especially as Trump said, we want a vaccine just for America, which is just... Which is the most barbaric thing I've ever heard. Just so you can prophesize off of people dying from a natural illness. It's just you can't make it up. You can't make it up.
So it's bullshit. I mean, knowing a vaccine or a pill and not sharing it with the rest of the world, it's like a genocide directly. I mean, it just so it's not like that laboratory has to be the first to have like to be the savior of the pandemic, but we have to work together. And I love this concept of collectivizing knowledge, medical knowledge, because it's the only way we can survive this virus. So individual recognition doesn't matter anymore. That is something that Zizek talks about a lot. So yeah, just reminds me of that. And another thing here.
That's similar to that thing with Turkey and the refugees as well. Because like, if you if you kind of like isolate all of the medicine to one country or few countries, the other countries that still have so many cases going on, that could potentially spread out and just make it fuck up over again.
And you say really good. That's really
you need to kind of help out the other people. We're all world citizens, you know. We're all world citizens, Sam.
We're all members of the Hive,
you know. So we're all members of the world. So yeah, if you're like I said exactly, it's just gonna. I'm kind of repeating myself as it were, but yeah, if you're not helping out the other people who are living on the same planet as you, they're still around catching diseases, etc. It's like that, man. You need to look out for each other, because it's same as like tyrants can't live without the actual work of the peasants. You can't fucking have. I'm just kind of elaborating on the same point I made, but. You know what I mean. It's like you need to get that kind of unification, because otherwise, if you're treating the like one side of the ladder as shit, like that, why should they work for you in a sense? Because you need to. Yeah. It's a time to come together. Yes.
It's a time to come together. Yeah.
What you're saying, this reminds me that in the chapter of "We Are All in the Same Boat," he talks about how in Israel, how the president gave some material, like medical material, I don't remember what, to to the Muslims, because and he says something like it's a forced solidarity. I mean, it's not solidarity, but you have to do this because we are all in the same boat.
Which is almost like almost good enough for now. That kind of like
You know
what I mean? It's like at least we're fucking cooperating a little bit.
Yeah. It's a step.
It's a step.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's so weird. I mean, you wouldn't say that president of Israel was giving like help to he doesn't want to give help to Palestinians, but it's just a way to protect himself, and to protect himself has to protect like all the all the territories are surrounding them. So. Yeah, we are all in the same boat.
Right. We're on an hour now, so chapter 7. Calm down and panic. So he talks about the toilet paper thing, which is really the thing that happened in our country, not so much your country, but in the UK.
Yeah, my country as well.
Oh, your country? Yeah.
Oh, was it?
I actually didn't know that it was like something that was happening in another countries. I thought it was in Spain. And then I read that it was in your country, and also in Australia, and a lot of countries from Europe. So yeah, I didn't know.
He says a very interesting thing to say, like, I know that the toilet paper rumor isn't true because they're not running out, and they know the toilet paper rumor isn't true, but now I know that they might take toilet paper. Maybe I should take toilet paper before they do, and they're thinking the same thing. So
I think it's
so as a result, and I thought it was very interesting for game theory, from a game theory angle, and I did a course on game theory, and I left it.
Oh yeah.
Oh bloody hell, that's awful.
Is that because you don't like video games?
No, game theory. What? Shut up. Shut up. Fuck up. That's not what it means. I don't like video games, for the record. I don't actually like
Really?
He likes like GTA 5 and that's
I like GTA 5.
He likes watching me play Fallout.
I like watching Jack play Fallout. So he then he discusses the definition of global communism as cooperation. Again, interesting for sure. But what of the repercussions of a certain form of global communism being put in place that doesn't serve people well? And that again is like my second biggest criticism. My biggest being, how are we going to even do that in the first place? Of course, it's not his role, but I would like a new book to come out where they explain what I can do to help, or maybe I have to write the fucking thing about pragmatism, because I want to write a book on pragmatism.
You've also got the sad fact that
go
on. Communism and capitalism, they're two separate like sides of the coin, I guess. They both like historically have just resulted in like shit, because like capitalism, obviously you get situations like this. You get not being able to pay rent if you don't work throughout the whole month. Living paycheck to paycheck, they call it. Yeah. Whereas, as landlords as well, I didn't realize landlords were living on my paycheck to my paycheck. That was another nice thing that came up. But fuck, where else? So communism, I suppose, in like their really bad situations with like China and fucking
North Korea.
Yeah, that's it. And the other one, USSR.
USSR.
World War II and stuff. Yeah. You
get
a lot of you get a lot of like, what is it? Fucking citizens not eating, I guess, right? And holding all the resources for yourself and things like that. So, should we have a balance between the two?
But the thing is that we are so unbalanced already. So even me, and I'm not, because I wouldn't call myself a communist, but we are so far on the neoliberal side of just how much money that, obviously says so much, but the amount of money that, is being hoarded in tax havens is incredible. And everyone else is living paycheck to paycheck. I don't even think that libertarians can argue that isn't a fantastic situation.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not the best situation to be in, for sure. I'm not saying, that's the thing. So... do you have anything to say before I make another point?
When he says it's over with America or whoever first, since America can be saved only through global coordination and collaboration. Yeah. And when I was reading this, that was weeks ago, I put in my note that it seems like Trump saw this and said, haha, you stupids, and decided to cut U.S. funding to the World Health Organization. So yeah, America first again. It's like, yeah, you say that, so fuck it. Or only America saves America. So this thing that Trump did, health experts are already defining this decision as crime against humanity. So it's not a joke. And US is the largest donor of the World Health Organization. And so, it is a crime against humanity. And it doesn't matter that Zizek says it's over with America or whoever first, because America will always be first.
Always be number one.
And if we have Trump, at least, no. So
if this happened in 1918, would we have a war about it?
It's a strange thing to say, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because there was a war going on in 1980.
Yeah.
So
different stuff.
So do you mean like would the war end because of coronavirus? Is that the thing? Was that what you were saying?
What would the impact be? Sorry, what I meant is like you do sort of commonly back in the day, you'd get a lot of wars between countries, whereas sort of nowadays you do get it a bit more with the small kind of factions of like terrorist organizations.
I wouldn't say World War III is out of the question.
Right, of course, yeah.
When you were sort of, I think it'd be very interesting if coronavirus occurred during World War One, and whether the war would be halted. That would be interesting. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a war going on before this coronavirus as well, wasn't there? Because Iraq and America. Iran. Fuck, that was a slip up. It's been too long.
It's fine.
Iran.
It's Eurasia, East Asia anyway, as George Orwell would say. It's like, it's just that other country that we're fighting.
That other Middle Eastern country.
It might be Russia one month, then Iran the next month, then Iraq the next month, then China the next month.
Yeah.
And then Mexico the next month. Yeah, and all of that.
Yeah.
So, okay. So he says, the broad communist approach I am advocating is the only way for us to leave behind such a primitive standpoint. And I say, yes, I agree. However, to what end? There is a question, what do I say? And then again, how do we put this in place? And I'm sort of hammering on about it again and again, but like, I still, these are the notes I've left anyway. And it is, what sort of specific, in a pragmatic approach, what sort of specific communism? I know Zizek says that he's not a utopian thinker and that communism is simply to meet the bare demands of human survival. But even then, how, I'm genuinely asking, like, I'm asking thoughtfully, how can such a thing be put in place?
It's almost a lesser of two evils, if it's to say.
It is, but we don't.
Almost.
But we haven't. But we can't speculate such a thing happening until it happens.
Plus, I suppose any situation is better than the worst situation.
Yes.
So that's it's still.
Of course, and
I guess lesser of evil was even when we were saying we didn't like it earlier, but like Trump or Clinton kind of thing, it still can be used, I guess, can't it?
Yeah. It's getting dark for both of us, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how to put this.
That's fine. I think it's fine there. That's a bit too bright at the top. That's
Like
all right.
this?
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. It's a little bright up here. Maybe move it back to where it was, I think.
Put it underneath and then like have all the lights turned off.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, underneath and the lights turned off. Try that.
Or no.
There's a lot of lamps.
There. That's good. Wherever it is now, that's good.
I move far back enough, I can disappear.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, yeah, we're pretty dark over here, actually. Maybe we'll turn the lightness up. Okay. So, can I move on to chapter 8, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is chapter 8, Monitor and Punish. Yes, please.
I love the titles of Zizek, really. I love these titles.
Yeah, me too. So, Agamben says that lockdown is tyrannical, or it could turn into tyranny, and Zizek says we should show solidarity by staying away from each other. That is solidarity and freedom. So the freedom to be healthy and well, basically. I did say I'm not sure it doesn't break the flow of the book, although it is a good thing to say. For me, it just sort of interrupted the slow process into communism and barbarism. I thought he could have said it maybe earlier in the book.
Okay, yeah.
But like, who am I to really say that? But it was just a point to make.
Yeah. I agree with you.
It's tyrannical if you don't believe in it.
Yes.
Because it's obviously.
If you're like a denier of coronavirus and you don't believe it's going to kill people.
Do you think maybe
it is killing people every day?
Yeah. Maybe some people think that their rights are not being taken away from them as such, but like they probably have less freedom because they are now having to do something which they weren't used to beforehand.
Yeah.
But I don't really think that's any different to boarding up your windows to stop bombs dropping on you during World War II.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's nice. That was nice. That's a nice thing to say. Except we're not even faced with a human enemy. So it's as Zizek says, just a self-replicating machine that kills people.
So that's brutal. Self-regulation that kills people. It sounds like a plot of an anime.
Yeah, it does actually. Like a H.G. Wells book. I think he even makes a H.G. Wells comparison. Yeah. He says that he.
No, he does. Yeah, was it?
I mean, he says that
War of the Worlds.
He said, yeah, War of the Worlds, and also Mars Attacks, and War of the Worlds, in that the aliens are us, and the people being attacked are also us.
Twilight Zone, mate.
You know, that's what he says. It was very interesting. You know, the aliens attacking other people, sort of, you know, going outside and all of that, and we're also, you know, we're just affecting ourselves. He does these very strange pop culture references, which I find kind of goofy at times, but you know, whatever.
It's got to analyze it.
It's got to analyze it. He keeps it colourful, I guess. You know.
Yeah.
So.
So what about what he says about Agamben, that because Agamben says something like there's a growing tendency to use the state of exception as a normal governing paradigm, and he says like Zizek says where it is. Well, anyways, the thing is that, what do you think about that? I mean, because there was actually a debate in Spain in the parliament like 2 days ago about this, because the Pedro Sánchez, our president, wanted to prolong the state of alarm, of exception, 2 weeks more, and then this debate came up like what you want. It was funny because there was like the independentist parties, Catalan parties, independentists, and then the conservatives saying more or less the same. Like you just want the power, you want people to feel like this is the normal thing to do, like this is politics now.
Yeah, but why? But these conservatives are very they're very for the market. Why would they want the market to continue to crash? That was the point that Zizek addressed. Why would the neoliberal conservatives want a prolonged market destruction and all of that? You know, it doesn't seem right to me. And I do agree with Zizek when he says that. You know, so we should, you know, there is still a pandemic going on, you know, and to simply, I think restrictions should be lifted. I think people should be allowed to sit on the beach, you know, stuff. You know, we live in a coastal town, so we you know, I believe that people should be allowed to go for social distance walks together and sit on the beach and have signs saying don't go near each other. There are no parties to be had, you know, and that can even be a way to restrict governmental controls, you know, but like,
which is pretty much what's going on with supermarkets. Although I suppose with when you're going shopping for food, it's like it's a necessity to feed yourself. But I suppose if measures become relaxed, that could be one that you can implement, because then again, you'd have to trust the will of the common people, which is not the most wise will at all, because it results in taking up loads of toilet rolls or like. Apparently there have been like illegal parties and stuff too that police have picked up on, and it's like, well,
stupid.
It's like, well, it's gonna go
on. I was talking to my friend's boyfriend, and he was saying that like perhaps picking like a few people that are your designated coronavirus buddies and meeting up with them and them alone, and having like, you know, groups of like 5-6 people or so, and being stuck and not meeting anyone else might be a nice way to lift restrictions and realistically lift restrictions.
I do agree with that. I think the only danger is give an inch, take a mile, in that people will take liberties. Sadly, they just will, like, they will. Even if you like, if you can see yourself as the most, you know, law-abiding citizen guy, whatever. Or most sensible dude, there is always going to be like people out there who will take advantage of that allowance, as it were. Because they ruin it for the rest of us.
I do. It's always the few.
It's always the few. Those are the people that Jeremy Corbyn wanted to assassinate, wasn't it? The few. Instead of the many.
That's a joke.
Okay. I didn't get
it. That's a joke. For YouTube, that's a joke. We're not spreading fake news. That is a joke.
For YouTube, I didn't understand.
Okay. Don't worry. Should we explain? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jeremy Corbyn is like this. He's the more socialist party.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah. And Jack made the joke that Jeremy Corbyn wants to kill the rich, basically.
It was
pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a play on what he had a phrase which was for the many, not for the few. And so when you said, it's the few that are ruining it, I was like, he wants to kill them.
Yeah. So it's a joke because that few means two things. Few means the few that have illegal parties and ruin social distancing for the rest of us, and the few is in the 1%, the super rich. So that's the joke. And then now it's not funny because I've explained it basically.
That was funny, yeah.
Well, but now I understand. Thank you.
Only Norm Macdonald can explain a joke and keep it funny.
Yeah, Norm Macdonald makes it
funny.
It makes it funny. I love Norm Macdonald's explaining of jokes. Okay, anyway. So Zizek says, the message is what you did to me, I am now doing to you, as nature's response, which is interesting. I would say it's similar to his contradicting message about the fact that we shouldn't find a spiritual meaning behind coronavirus, but it is a different. It is a different message of sorts. But like it does have this kind of like similar kind of ring that he was going against at the beginning of the book, and it seems like you agree with me.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I didn't expect Zizek to say that. I mean, it doesn't sound like him, and after saying that about spirituality and all this stuff, but I think in the next chapter he keeps talking about that, and he resolved this contradiction. I don't know, but I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, he don't know Spanish, if I didn't say. So this isn't even her first language. So I think it's very, I had a difficult time reading some of this. Although it is actually a very easy book to read for philosophy standards.
It is.
It's very easy to read. It's not like
it's not as such philosophy as it is more to like social political, though I guess.
It's more social political commentary.
They do come together, but it's not existentialism.
He's not saying this kind of like. I mean, let me find a Hegel quote. This is like almost like a party trick of mine, because Hegel has some very, very, very bloody awful things. I mean, obviously he's very influential, but like, okay, let's read this. Essence stands between being and notion. It constitutes their mean. And its movement is the transition from being into the notion. For the general determination of essence is to have proceeded from being, or to be the first negation of being.
Yeah, I got lost as soon as you said notion.
Okay.
Let's get another one. One more. For fun. The self-same consciousness which repels itself from itself becomes aware of being an element existing in itself. But to itself it is this element to begin with only as universal reality in general, and not as this essential reality appears when developed in all the manifold details it contains, when the process of its being brings out all its fullness of content.
It's like every single Hegel quote seems like it's incomplete. It seems like he's still supposed to be talking after that.
Just fucking
but like
content. Like, where did content come from? Just write. He's notorious for writing very complicated, very difficult to understand philosophy. He's like the guy that's like he wrote quite horribly. Chapter 9. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
when you were searching for Hegel quotes, I was searching for what I was talking about. That in this chapter, in this 9, it is the 9th chapter. The 9th chapter, I think. Yeah. He keeps talking about this spiritual karma, blah blah, and so he says something like he quotes Kate Jones, and I say I like this perception of Kate Jones that he refers, because she relates climatic crisis with COVID crisis not as some kind of spiritual karma that is returning us what we did to Mother Earth or something like that, but a hidden cost of human economic development. So she says that we humans go to places where we are exposed more and more to these viruses, and these viruses are transmitted.
Sorry, I missed that word. Really sorry.
Virus. Virus.
Virus. Yeah, with the virus. Sorry.
Virus. No, sorry. Yeah, these viruses are transmitted more easily, and then we are surprised. So it's not like a karma or something like that, or something spiritual. I think here's when he resolved this contradiction, because quoting this K. Jones. Because
I have to say, I'm not completely against the idea of getting a spiritual meaning from it. Because, we are...
It's empowering, isn't it?
It's empowering in the sense that, that we are fucking that nature up. And we're wreaking havoc on nature. And the response is very lucky. I'm not saying that it was karma. I'm just saying that the response is...
Could have been worse.
It could have been worse, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I think he finds a way to, I don't know, not only justify this as a spiritual karma or something like that.
No, he's very much against don't make yourself feel good about the coronavirus, and that is spiritual karma. And that's kind of how I interpret it. There's kind of this buying organic apples thing again, where we're making we're making each other feel good. Oh, it's nature's healing, all of this sort of stuff. When we won't learn from it.
Yeah, but it's not about the spiritual karma. You can believe that, but it's also, if you can say it like that, it's also that we humans go to places where we don't belong there, and then viruses are transmitted more easily. Yeah. So it's scientifically proved that this could happen. So it's not about only karma. So this is, I don't know, this is a way that...
Yeah. So, chapter 9, he quotes, I'm quoting him, sorry. More than open barbarism, I fear barbarism with a human face. Ruthless, survivalist measures enforced with regret and even sympathy, but legitimized by expert opinions. This is a great observation and a real problem.
They're kind of saying the subjugation of individuals is necessary for the duty. I don't wanna have to.
I don't want to have to gas you in a chamber.
Yeah, but I've got
to do it.
Like a
the experts say so. The propagandists and all of that.
Almost like a
or the scientists, the Nazis, whatever it is. Or no, I'm not saying this isn't the same thing, but there's the same law that's being followed here. So.
You get it nowadays. To be fair, you do get people will say certain measures in the world are necessary for X, Y, Z. I'm trying to think if I come up with an example, but I suppose one view on immigration is that they do the jobs that the X doesn't want to do, which is not a good way to put it, to be fair. But that I suppose that could be a view in that same kind of principle, right? To say, well, I don't want immigrants, but I also don't want to do the healthcare work. Yeah. It's I suppose it's in that same vein.
Yeah.
So people do still think that way. So I suppose it would only get extreme as situations get more extreme.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It is polarization, which is already a problem, which has been a problem for ever since social media, really. So, I'm on chapter 10 now. Have you got anything to say about chapter 9 before I move
on? Just a second. Well, I have something about Agamben and Zizek discussion, but...
we can skip it. We are pressed on time,
It's a bit of a reach, but he might also be saying... Traditionally, people act evilly. Evil people act evil because of a means to satisfy themselves. Yeah. But if we keep, working in this particular way, evil will actually become a necessity to live, as it were. Because you do you know what I mean?
It becomes normalized.
Yeah, kind of, and it becomes normalized, or it gets so bad that it is necessary and it's justifiable even. Evil becoming justifiable. let's. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sort of, something like that.
Necessary.
Mhm.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Chapter 10?
Yeah. Or just a thing.
Okay.
I like when he says like, he talks about that Trump is announcing proposal to take over private sector, and he says something like, this is how this new communism starts. So it's like with things like that, and I think it's kind of funny. And so
It's kind of ironic. It's ironic.
it is.
What is?
Yeah, I mean, he says something like, this is not a utopian communist vision. It is a communist imposed by the necessities of bare survival.
Yeah, exactly right.
So in a crisis, we are all socialists.
Yes, always. I mean, universal basic income is an example of that.
Yeah. Like Boris Johnson, obviously speaking, advocating for socialist views despite being conservative. Very odd.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. But I want to keep pressing on to chapter 10. So
yeah, let's go.
I'm going to skip this part because we're pressing time. Dan Patrick, the Lieutenant Governor of, to quote him again, Dan Patrick, the Lieutenant Governor of Texas.
The title of the chapter.
Oh, sorry, the title of the chapter. Communism or Barbarism. As simple as that. And the chapter 9 title is barbarism with a human face at our face, if I didn't say it already. So this chapter we're talking now is communism or barbarism, as simple as that.
Epic finale.
Yeah, very cool. Dan Patrick, the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, went on Fox News to argue that he would rather die than see public health measures damage the U.S. economy, and that he believed... lots of grandparents across the country would agree with him. My message, let's get back to work. Let's get back to living. Let's be smart about it. And those of us who are 70 plus will take care of ourselves. What an awful thing to say.
I think if you he's saying that he would be happy doing that. So otherwise he'd be a hypocrite. I mean you could start an organization called let's kill ourselves for the future of the planet, and then you can sign. He could sign up people volunteering to do it, and he could be one of them.
We'll take care of ourselves.
Yeah, you gotta make that choice for yourself. You can't say, well, I'm making a choice. Why don't you people make it too?
Yeah. Let people fucking stay in if they want to. Crazy. I agree. All we're going to say, this is real barbarism. Yeah. Yeah.
Mental paragraph.
I like when he says also that I mean he argues that this is why the stance of those who see the crisis as an unpolitical moment where state power should do its tasks and we should just follow its instructions, hoping that some kind of normality will be restored in a not too far future. It's a mistake, and I agree.
I agree as well. So he then says, this is where my notion of communism comes from, not as an obscure dream, but simply as a name for what is already going on, or at least perceived by many as a necessity. Interesting and very convincing. I admit that I'm very convinced by his message. Again, I have the problems, but like I've already spoken about them. So
yeah.
And
public use of reason, as Kant say.
Yeah. I also say that I don't know. I forget why I said this, but I also say I want to retain the problems with it so as not to get seduced by his charm, because he's a very he's a charming and compelling writer, but and all of that
he is yeah. Okay.
Right, and that's the end of chapter 10 for me. My notes, and then it's just the appendix, and I have one note, and then we're done pretty much. So
yeah.
Gladly succumb to your guilty pleasures.
Yeah, that's what he says. Catastrophic dystopias. I like to pretend that it's I like to watch YouTube documentaries on the great battles of the past. I like that he advocates the message, because he's basically what he's saying is, you can pretend this whole fantasy of post-apocalyptic and all of that, but don't deny that it's happening. Know that there's a crisis. Make a game out of it, but don't deny that it's happening.
Yeah, I like that.
So
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm done. Have you got anything else to say before we summarize the whole book?
No. I think you said what I wanted to say.
So yeah, I thought this was a great book. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a really good introduction to talking about, what we need to do, what measures need to be taken into place. I think it's very colorful. I think it's very fun to read. It's very short, and I think it's amazing that he wrote it so quickly. My two main problems with it are, to what end of what form of communism can we implement, and how are we going to do this? Those are my two biggest problems. They're not really problems, but they're just they're questions.
Take froms, aren't they?
They're take froms.
Criticisms.
Take froms is not an expression, by the way. We just made that up.
Okay. You can tell me it is expression, and I will be like, oh wait.
Oh yeah, I was just doing a take from, and then everyone's like, "What?"
It's like a feedback.
It's feedback. Yeah. So yeah, let's go back up. Okay.
Yeah,
What was his purpose with the book? What was he trying to say, do you reckon?
I don't know. Yeah.
Other than to highlight the issue and to say how we got here needs to not happen again.
Well, I hope it starts a proper discussion and not like the fucking BuzzFeed article sort of discussion where they just talk about how offensive it is.
What was even offensive about it?
I mean, I think he wanted to present a lot of the important topics or dilemmas, the current topic or dilemmas that we are all having these days. So yeah, or at least, I don't know, the most recurring important topics. And I think he successfully did that. And yeah.
I mean, I find chapter 5, the 5 stages of epidemics, really convincing. I thought that was such a convincing chapter on what is acceptance in the 5 stages of an epidemic or grief or like a problem, where it was actually sorted out. Again, I do find that he talks big. He talks big, and I want a bit more substance, and I want a bit more pragmatism with what he says. But again, that's not his role. I want someone else to come along and organize anarchy or communism or something, something meaty,
Well, I think there's a lot of people working on that, so.
Definitely. I'll be happy. We can do a review on it maybe if it's compelling, if it's a compelling read. And it's bye. So, I think we're done.
Yeah.
We're done, right? And it is time to thank our honourable mentions, our lovely patrons that support the podcast and pledge.
I thought you were open with that.
No, we end with it. We end with it normally. So we thank Oliver, who says, "Yeah, I'll drink to that." Oh, by the way, for £1 a month, you can subscribe. You can pledge to the podcast. There'll be a link, and you can get your name and a phrase of your choice, a tagline, audibly mentioned. And this is what I'm doing now. So we have Oliver, who says, "Yeah, I'll drink to that." We have Rachel, who says, "Communism is for life, not just for Christmas," which I find a very funny thing to say.
Wow,
Rachel,
that's cool.
We thank Manny, who says, "Long live Wombstone," which is our band. We thank Maisie, who says 9/11 was an inside job. We thank Ryan, who says keep true, be fair, and spread love. And we thank Snow, who says be excellent to each other.
Oh,
very nice. It was a more inappropriate tagline before, but we had to change it. So yeah, do you have anything to say, Irene, before we wrap things up?
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no worries.
And I had so much fun reading this book. So yeah.
I had fun reading about it and discussing it with you for everyone to hear.
Yeah.
And I will link Irene's podcast in the description if anyone is a Spanish speaker and they would like to have some fun,
to practice or something.
Some jovial feminist rants about men and stuff, which sounds like a lot of fun. I just wish I spoke Spanish and understood some of it. So thanks very much. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Everyone is listening, and long live it all, everyone. All right, signing off now. Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.